Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English in Advance. I'm Jessica, your host for today. If this is your first time joining our community, let me tell you a little about what we do. Here, we share new lessons every single day designed to help you elevate your English skills. We focus deeply on the nuances of listening, the art of speaking, and building that unshakable natural confidence that every advanced learner strives for. So if your goal is to practice daily and truly master the English language, you have certainly found the right place. Today we are diving into a topic that is close to my heart. It's about making that final, crucial leap from being an advanced student of English to becoming an advanced, natural, and confident speaker of English. Many of you are at a C1 or even C2 level. You understand complex texts, you have an impressive vocabulary, and your grammar is solid. But there might still be a small gap between what you know in your head and what comes out of your mouth in a real conversation. That's the gap we are going to close together today. Let me start by sharing a short story with you. Think of a man named Liam. Liam works as a financial analyst for a large international company, and his job requires him to present market analysis to colleagues from London, New York, and Singapore. At the beginning of his career, Liam faced a significant challenge. He knew all the sophisticated financial terms. Words like quantitative easing, market volatility, and derivative instruments. He could write incredibly detailed and accurate reports. But when he stood up to speak, something felt off. His colleagues would listen politely, but he could see in their eyes that they weren't truly engaged. He spoke in long, complex sentences, trying to fit in as many advanced words as possible, believing this would prove his expertise. One day, after a particularly dense presentation, his manager, a kind woman named Sarah, took him aside. She said, "Liam, your knowledge is brilliant. No one doubts that, but your message is getting lost. Try this next time. Speak in shorter sentences, pause after each key idea, and focus on being clear, not on being complex." Liam was skeptical at first. Would simplifying his language make him sound less intelligent? Still, he decided to give it a try. In his next presentation, he had to explain a complex market trend. Instead of saying, "The prevailing macroeconomic indicators necessitate a strategic reallocation of assets towards more secure, low-yield financial instruments to mitigate potential downturns," he took a deep breath, paused, and said, "The economy is looking a bit uncertain right now. So, I suggest we move some of our investments into safer options. This will protect us if the market goes down." The change was immediate and profound. His colleagues started nodding. They asked insightful questions. After the meeting, several people came up to him and said, "That was the clearest explanation of the market I've heard all year." Liam's confidence soared, not because he had used fancy words, but because he had successfully connected with his audience. His ideas were finally being heard. Why am I sharing Liam's story with you? Because it perfectly illustrates the core of what we are talking about today. True advanced fluency isn't about the complexity of your vocabulary. It's about the clarity of your communication and the natural confidence in your delivery. It's about making your listener's job easy. Here is a little something for you to try right now. Think about a topic you are an expert in. It could be your job, a hobby you're passionate about, your city's history, or even a detailed recipe you know by heart. First, take a moment and try to explain a key concept from that topic using the most academic, complex, and formal language you can think of. Imagine you are writing a university thesis. Now, take a deep breath and explain the exact same concept again, but this time imagine you are explaining it to a curious and intelligent friend over a cup of coffee. Notice the difference. Feel how the energy changes. The second version, the natural one, is likely more powerful, more engaging, and ultimately, it makes you sound more confident. This is the skill we will be mastering together. Let me give you another example to consider. Picture a woman named Isabella, a brilliant scientist from Brazil who moved to Ireland to work in a research institute. She had published papers in prestigious journals, written in flawless academic English. But when she had to participate in casual conversations during lunch breaks, she often found herself hesitating. One day, she was invited to a small community gathering to talk about her research on renewable energy. She knew this wasn't an academic conference. The audience would be her neighbors, shopkeepers, teachers, artists. Instead of preparing a formal lecture, she remembered the power of storytelling. She began her talk by saying, "Hello everyone, my name is Isabella. When I was a little girl growing up in a small town in Brazil, I was always fascinated by the sun. I wondered how this giant star could give us so much warmth and light. Now, as a scientist, I'm still fascinated by the sun. My job, in simple terms, is to find better ways to turn that sunlight into clean energy for our homes." Her introduction was simple, personal, and completely natural. The audience was captivated. They felt connected to her not just as a scientist, but as a person. This is the secret that many advanced learners miss. Natural speaking is not about perfection, it is about connection. We often focus so intensely on avoiding grammatical mistakes that we forget the main purpose of language, which is to share ideas, feelings, and stories with other human beings. Let's do a little practice together right now to make this idea even clearer. I'm going to give you a sentence, the kind you might find in a formal business report. Then I'll rephrase it into natural, confident, conversational English. Listen for the difference in feeling. The formal sentence is, subsequent to the acquisition of the preliminary data, a comprehensive analysis will be undertaken to ascertain the project's viability. Now, let's make that natural. It would sound something like this. After we get the first set of data, we'll analyze it carefully to see if the project is a good idea. Do you hear that? The first one is correct, but it's cold, distant, and heavy. The second one is clear, direct, and it sounds confident because it's easy to understand. Let's try another one. Formal sentence. I am writing to express my profound dissatisfaction with the substandard quality of the product I recently procured from your esteemed establishment. How can we make that sound more natural, like a real person talking? You might say, I'm calling about a product I bought last week. Unfortunately, I'm not happy with the quality. Again, the natural version is still polite and advanced, but it's warmer, more direct, and it communicates the message with more confidence. I want you to start thinking about your own life, your own conversations. When you communicate with your manager, your partner, your clients, or your friends, what is your primary goal? It's to be understood, to connect, and to achieve a certain outcome. Using overly complex English can sometimes create a barrier, while speaking naturally and clearly builds a bridge. Let me tell you about another person, a man named Kenji, an architect from Japan who had a lifelong dream of presenting his designs at an international conference. He practiced his speech for months, memorizing every single word. His written speech was a masterpiece of architectural theory and complex vocabulary. But when he stood on the stage and tried to deliver it from memory, he sounded robotic, disconnected from his own passionate ideas. The audience could feel his nervousness. Later, he tried a completely different method. For his next presentation, he didn't write a script. Instead, he created a few slides with powerful images of his work and wrote down just 3 key words for each slide. When he spoke from the heart, using the keywords as anchors. The result was breathtaking. People described his presentation as inspiring, human, and incredibly confident. He wasn't just reciting information, he was sharing his vision. This journey taught Kenji that when you relax, trust your knowledge, and let your English flow naturally, you don't just speak with confidence, you become confidence. Let's imagine a conversation between 2 colleagues, Clara and Marco, who are planning a team event. Clara has been with their international company for a decade and speaks English with effortless fluency. Marco, who recently transferred from the Italian office, has a very high level of English, but still feels a bit insecure, especially in casual planning sessions. Marco might start by saying, "Regarding the forthcoming team-building excursion, it is my considered opinion that a location with sufficient amenities should be prioritized to facilitate optimal participant engagement." He's trying to sound professional, but it comes across as a bit stiff. Clara, understanding his intention but wanting to make the conversation flow more easily, might gently respond, "That's a good point, Marco. So you think we need a place with good facilities? Like, maybe somewhere with a nice meeting room and a good restaurant nearby?" Do you see what Clara did? She paraphrased Marco's formal sentence into simple, natural questions. This not only confirmed her understanding, but also guided the conversation into a more natural, collaborative rhythm. Marco, hearing his idea reflected back in simpler terms, feels understood and can now relax. He might reply, "Yes, exactly." A good restaurant is a great idea. This brings us to a wonderful practice technique, active paraphrasing. The next time you're in a conversation and someone uses a very complex or formal phrase, try to repeat their idea back to them in your own simpler words. You could say things like, "So, if I understand you correctly, you're saying that." Or, in other words, "You feel we should." This not only improves your own ability to think on your feet in English, but it also makes you a fantastic communicator and a person others love to talk to. Now let's do a short role play. Imagine you are Marco in that meeting. Your task is to suggest an idea for the team event, but you must use short, clear sentences. For example, you could say, "I have an idea for our team event. Why don't we go hiking? The mountains are beautiful in this season. Afterwards, we can have a nice lunch together at a local restaurant." Can you feel how simple, clear, and confident that sounds? It's an invitation, not a formal proclamation. Let's move to another story. Consider a woman named Fatima who works as a doctor in Qatar. Her medical knowledge was exceptional, and her written English was perfect. But when she had to explain a diagnosis to patients from other countries, she often felt a surge of anxiety. She wanted to be perfectly precise, to use the exact medical terminology, and this pressure caused her to hesitate and stammer. One day, her husband, who was not a doctor, gave her a piece of profound advice. He said, "Fatima, they don't need a medical textbook. They need a caring doctor. Your confidence comes from your expertise and your compassion, not just from your perfect English. This shifted her entire perspective. Before her next consultation with an international patient, she took a moment to remind herself, I am the expert here. I know what I'm talking about. My primary job is to make this person feel safe and understood. English is just the tool I use to do that. With this new mindset, her communication was transformed. She started using simpler analogies. For instance, instead of saying, the prescribed pharmaceutical intervention is designed to inhibit the enzymatic processes that contribute to inflammation, she might say. This medicine works like a firefighter. It goes inside your body and puts out the fire that is causing the pain and swelling. Her patients felt relieved. They understood, and because they understood, they trusted her completely. This story teaches us a fundamental lesson. Your mindset is the foundation upon which your spoken confidence is built. If you believe in your own value and knowledge, your English will naturally sound more assured. Now, let's practice listening to two different ways of giving advice. Imagine you are a manager speaking to a team member. Version 1. It is my recommendation that you proactively undertake a comprehensive review of the quarterly performance data in order to identify any discernible anomalies prior to our forthcoming review. Version 2. I think it would be a good idea for you to look over the sales numbers from the last few months. See if anything stands out before we meet next week. Both versions convey the same instruction, but which one sounds more like a supportive leader and less like a legal document? The second one, of course. It's confident, clear, and it fosters a sense of collaboration. Here's a practical tip for you. The next time you have to prepare for an important conversation, be it a job interview, a presentation, or even a difficult discussion with a family member, try this. Write down two versions of your key messages. First, write the version that you think sounds the most advanced and professional, probably with longer sentences and more complex words. Then rewrite the same messages in simple, clear, natural English, as if you were talking to a respected friend. Read both versions out loud. Almost every time you will find that the second version not only sounds better, but also feels better to say. It feels more like you. Let's consider another character. A man named Samuel who lives in Lagos, Nigeria, and works as an architect. In his field, precision is everything, and his written English reflected that. He could describe architectural plans with incredible detail, but in his personal life, with his wife, his children, and his neighbors, he found it hard to switch off that formal, precise style. This sometimes made him seem distant or overly serious. He learned the art of code switching from his teenage daughter. One evening, she was telling him about her day at school, and he replied, "Your anecdotal evidence suggests a suboptimal pedagogical environment." His daughter just stared at him and said, "Dad, can you just say, 'It sounds like you had a bad day'?" It was a light bulb moment for Samuel. He realized that true mastery of a language isn't about using one style perfectly. It's about having the flexibility to adapt your language to the context and the relationship. He learned to be a formal architect at work and a warm, natural-speaking father at home. This brings us to a wonderful exercise for you. Think of one topic, perhaps your favorite film. First, I want you to describe why you like it in a very formal academic style, as if you were a film critic writing for a journal. You might say something like, The film's narrative structure is a masterful deconstruction of classic cinematic tropes, utilizing non-linear storytelling to explore themes of existentialism and memory. Now, take that same love for the film and describe it to a friend who you want to convince to watch it with you. You probably say something like, "You have to see this movie." The story is amazing. It really makes you think. And the ending? Oh, the ending is just incredible. We should totally watch it together this weekend. Both descriptions are valid and advanced, but they serve different purposes. The ability to move between these styles is the hallmark of a truly confident and advanced speaker. Perfect. Let's go even deeper now. I want to expand on these ideas with more stories, more detailed role plays, and exercises that will really stretch your listening and speaking skills to a high C1 level, while always anchoring ourselves in that principle of natural, accessible communication. Let's revisit the idea of clarity through the story of a man named Alejandro. Alejandro is a brilliant engineer from Colombia who took a job leading a team in Manchester, England. He was determined to impress his new British colleagues, and he thought the best way to do that was to use very sophisticated formal English. In his first team meeting, he was explaining a problem with a new software build. He said, "The current iteration of the software manifests a persistent anomaly, which necessitates a meticulous and multifaceted debugging protocol." His team, a group of very practical and direct engineers, just looked at each other in confusion. Finally, one of them, a senior engineer named David, said gently, "Alejandro, mate, are you just saying there's a bug and we need to fix it?" Alejandro felt his face turn red, but it was a crucial learning moment. He realized that in that particular work culture, directness and clarity were valued far more than elaborate vocabulary. From then on, he changed his approach. Instead of using long, heavy sentences, he would say things like, "Okay, team, we have a problem here. The new update is crashing. Let's figure out why and get it sorted." His team responded immediately. They respected his knowledge and his newfound clarity. His confidence grew immensely because he was finally communicating effectively, not just speaking correctly. This story teaches us that confidence is not just about the words we choose, but about our awareness of the context and the audience. What sounds impressive in an academic paper might sound confusing and inefficient in a fast-paced team meeting. Now let's put you in Alejandro's shoes with a role-play exercise. Imagine your manager comes to you and asks for an update. "So how is the project progressing?" You have two ways you could answer. Let's hear the formal, complex version first. The implementation of the strategic initiative is proceeding in accordance with the pre-established timeline, with only minor deviations being managed with optimal efficiency by the designated team members. Now let's hear the natural, confident version. The project is going really well. We're right on schedule. The team is handling a few small changes, but everything is running smoothly. Both of these answers are grammatically perfect. Both use good vocabulary. But which one makes you sound more in control, more confident, and easier to work with? In most everyday professional situations, the natural version is far more powerful. Let me share another story with you, this time about a woman named Priya, a doctor from India working in a hospital in Australia. She had excellent medical English, but she had a habit she developed during her university exams. She would prepare her presentations word for word and memorize them completely. She believed this would prevent her from making any mistakes. The problem was, as we discussed earlier, if she forgot even a single word, her entire flow would collapse. She would pause, panic, and her anxiety would become visible to the audience. This made her sound far less confident than she actually was. One day, she was watching a TED Talk by a famous surgeon. The surgeon wasn't reading from a script. He was telling stories. He had notes, yes, but they were just keywords on a small card. He spoke naturally, with passion and authenticity. Priya decided to try this new method for her next hospital seminar. Instead of writing a 20-page script, she wrote down 5 key points on a single piece of paper. 1. The problem. 2. A patient story. 3. Our new treatment. 4. The results. 5. Future hopes. When she stood up to speak, she didn't try to remember specific sentences. She just talked about each point, using her own words, telling the patient's story with genuine emotion. The audience was completely engaged. They asked questions, they participated, and afterwards several colleagues told her it was the best presentation she had ever given. Priya learned that authentic communication, even with a few small hesitations, is infinitely more powerful than a perfectly memorized but soulless script. Here is something you can try at home to build this skill. Pick a topic you know very well. It could be a book you've read, a trip you've taken, or your area of professional expertise. Give yourself a challenge. Write down only 3 or 4 keywords related to that topic. Then, set a timer for 2 minutes and try to speak about the topic continuously, using only those keywords as your guide. Don't worry about perfect grammar. Don't worry about finding the most advanced word. Just focus on communicating your ideas naturally. This will train your brain to speak with freedom and confidence without the crutch of a full script. Now let's practice with another comparison, this time in written communication, like an email. Imagine you are writing to a colleague to thank them for their help. The formal version might look like this. I would like to take this opportunity to extend my profound gratitude for your invaluable contribution to the successful and timely completion of the aforementioned project. Now, the natural yet still professional version. Hi, Sarah. I just wanted to say a huge thank you for all your help with the project. Your support really made a big difference, and we couldn't have finished it on time without you. Both emails express gratitude, but the natural version feels warmer, more sincere, and it builds a stronger professional relationship. When you choose natural language, you are choosing to connect on a human level. Let's consider another example, this time focusing on pace and pausing. Samuel, an accountant from Nigeria, had impeccable grammar and a vast vocabulary, but he had a habit of speaking very quickly without any pauses. He thought that speaking fast would make him sound intelligent and professional. In reality, it had the opposite effect. His colleagues often had to ask him to repeat himself, and during conference calls, people would mentally switch off because his rapid-fire delivery was exhausting to listen to. One day, his wife, who also worked in a corporate environment, recorded him during a practice presentation. When he listened to the recording, he was shocked. He didn't sound confident. He sounded rushed and anxious. From that day on, he made a conscious effort to slow down. He started thinking of his sentences as musical phrases, with natural rests and pauses between them. Instead of rushing through a point, he would state it clearly, pause for a second to let it sink in, and then move on. His colleagues immediately noticed the difference. One of them said, "Samuel, you sounded so calm and authoritative in the meeting today." This is another secret of confident speech. Confident people are not in a rush. They take their time. They own the silence. Let's do a small listening practice together to feel the power of this. I want you to repeat these sentences in your mind, or even whisper them out loud, paying close attention to the pauses I indicate. I believe we have a strong plan. Pause. However, we need to consider the risks. Pause. Let's discuss a solution together. Did you feel how those small pauses give the words more weight and authority? Try incorporating this technique into your own speaking. The next time you have an important point to make, say it, and then just pause. Let the silence do some of the work for you. You will be amazed at how much more people listen. This journey towards natural, confident speaking is a beautiful one, filled with small discoveries. It's about unlearning the idea that advanced means complicated. It's about realizing that true mastery lies in simplicity, clarity, and authentic human connection. You already have the knowledge. You have the vocabulary and the grammar. Now, it's just a matter of giving yourself permission to be natural, to be clear, and to be confidently you. Every conversation, every meeting, every email is a new opportunity to practice this. So embrace it and watch as your English and your confidence transform. Now that we have firmly established how clarity and simplicity are not the enemies of advanced English, but rather its most powerful allies, let's explore another layer, another dimension of natural and confident speaking. This is where we move beyond just being understood and step into the realm of truly connecting with people. We're going to talk about emotional intelligence in communication, how the words we choose can build trust, show empathy, and create powerful bonds. Think about a woman named Annika, a team leader from Sweden working in a fast-paced tech company in Dublin. Annika was incredibly efficient and intelligent. Her feedback to her team was always direct, logical, and precise. If a project was behind schedule, she would say, "The project timeline has deviated from the established plan. We must identify the inefficiencies and rectify the situation immediately." While her feedback was accurate, she noticed her team members often seemed defensive or demotivated after their meetings. They did the work, but without passion. Annika sought advice from a mentor, a senior director named Ben. Ben listened patiently and then said something that changed her perspective forever. He said, "Annika, people are not robots. They don't just respond to logic, they respond to feeling. Your team knows what the problems are. What they need from you isn't just a diagnosis, they need your support. Try using softer, more collaborative language." Annika decided to experiment. The next time a project faced a delay instead of her usual direct approach, she started the meeting by saying, "Hi everyone. I know we've run into some challenges with the deadline, and I can imagine it must feel a bit stressful right now. I want you to know I'm here to support you. Let's talk together. What are the biggest hurdles you're facing, and how can I help clear the way?" The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Her team members, who had been bracing for criticism, relaxed. They opened up, shared the real problems they were facing, and started brainstorming solutions together. Annika learned that advanced communication isn't just about the clarity of the message, but also about the safety of the environment you create with your words. Using phrases like, "I can imagine that feels," "I'm here to support you," and "let's figure this out together," transformed her from just a manager into a true leader. This brings us to a crucial skill for any C1 or C2 speaker, the ability to use empathetic language. It's the difference between stating a fact and acknowledging a feeling. Let's practice this. Imagine a colleague tells you, "I'm completely overwhelmed with this new project." A purely logical, factual response might be, "You should break the project down into smaller tasks and manage your time more effectively." While this advice might be useful, it can also sound cold and dismissive. An emotionally intelligent response would start with empathy. You might say, "Wow, it sounds like you have a lot on your plate right now. I can understand why you'd feel overwhelmed." Just that one sentence, "I can understand why you'd feel overwhelmed," validates their feeling. It shows you are listening not just to their words, but to their emotions. After you've shown empathy, you can then gently offer help. "Is there anything I can do to help you get started? Or maybe we could look at the plan together." Here's a small role play for you. Imagine your friend tells you, "I'm really disappointed. I didn't get the promotion I was hoping for." Your task is to respond, but you must start by acknowledging their feeling before offering any advice. You could say something like, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That must be really tough, especially after all the hard work you put in." That simple act of recognition is incredibly powerful. Let's explore another story, this time about a man named Leo, a journalist from Australia. Leo had a fantastic vocabulary and loved using precise, sophisticated words in his articles. He believed that to be a great writer, he needed to avoid simple language at all costs. However, this created a bit of a challenge. While his writing was technically brilliant, his editor often told him that his articles felt a bit academic. They lacked a human touch. This provides a wonderful counterpoint to our main theme of simplification. While simplifying is often key, a true C1/C2 speaker also knows when a specific, nuanced, and perhaps more advanced word is the perfect choice, because it is the most precise and evocative option. The goal isn't just to be simple. The goal is to be effective. Leo learned this lesson when he was assigned to write a story about an elderly woman who had lost her home in a flood. His first draft described her as experiencing significant emotional distress. His editor read it and said, "Leo, emotional distress is a clinical term. Can't you do better? What did you actually see in her eyes?" Leo thought back to the interview. He remembered the woman's quiet dignity, the way she spoke about her lost memories without a single tear, but with a deep sadness that seemed to fill the room. He rewrote the sentence. He described her as being filled with a quiet, resilient sorrow. That one change, from emotional distress to resilient sorrow, made all the difference. Resilient sorrow is a more complex and nuanced phrase, but in this context, it was the most accurate and powerful choice. It painted a picture. It conveyed an emotion that a simpler phrase might have missed. Leo learned that advanced language is not about using big words for the sake of it. It's about choosing the perfect word for the moment. Here's an exercise to help you develop this sense of precision. Think about the word happy. It's a simple, good word, but there are so many different kinds of happiness. I'm going to give you a few scenarios, and I want you to try to replace the word happy with a more precise, evocative word. Scenario 1. A student has just found out they received the top score on a very difficult exam. Instead of happy, they might feel elated or triumphant. Scenario 2. Someone is sitting quietly by a lake at sunset, feeling a deep sense of peace with the world. Instead of happy, they might feel serene or content. Scenario 3. A child has just been given a surprise puppy for their birthday. Instead of happy, they are probably ecstatic or gleeful. Do you see? Elated, serene, ecstatic. These are more advanced words, but we are not using them to sound complicated. We are using them because they are more precise. They paint a clearer emotional picture. This is the art of advanced vocabulary, using it with purpose and precision. Now let's tackle another common hurdle for advanced learners: handling spontaneous questions and thinking on your feet. This is often where confidence wavers. You can prepare a perfect presentation, but what do you do when someone asks a question you weren't expecting? Let's meet Sophia, a brilliant PhD student from Greece studying in the UK. Sophia could write a 100-page thesis with confidence, but the Q&A session after her presentations was her biggest fear. Her mind would go blank. She felt the pressure to give an instant, perfect answer, and that pressure would cause her to stumble over her words. Her supervisor taught her a few simple but life-changing techniques. The first was to paraphrase the question. When someone asked a complex question, instead of trying to answer it immediately, she learned to say, "That's an excellent question. So, if I'm understanding correctly, you're asking about..." This did two things. First, it ensured she had understood the question correctly. Second, and more importantly, it gave her brain a few extra seconds to think and formulate an answer. It was a simple trick, but it completely broke the cycle of panic. Another technique was to learn to use natural filler phrases gracefully. Many learners are taught to avoid fillers like and but native speakers use them all the time. The key is to use more sophisticated, natural-sounding fillers. Instead of just Sophia learned to say things like, "Well, that's an interesting point to consider. Let me think about that for a moment. Off the top of my head, I would say that." These phrases signal that you are thinking, which is a perfectly normal and intelligent thing to do. They make the pause feel intentional, not like a moment of panic. Let's do a quick practice. Imagine you are in a meeting and your boss asks you, "What are your thoughts on the new marketing proposal?" Instead of freezing, you can use one of these techniques. You could start by saying, "The new marketing proposal. That's a big topic. Let me just gather my thoughts for a second." This gives you a moment to breathe and think, and it makes you sound thoughtful and composed. Through these small changes, paraphrasing questions, and using graceful fillers, Sophia transformed her Q&A sessions. She went from dreading them to actually enjoying them. She realized that confidence in spontaneous situations isn't about having all the answers instantly. It's about having the tools to manage the moment with grace and composure. As we bring all these ideas together, the power of simplicity, the importance of mindset, the music of pacing, the art of storytelling, the flexibility of style, the warmth of empathy, the precision of vocabulary, and the grace of spontaneity, we begin to see a complete picture of a truly advanced and confident English speaker. It's not a person who knows the most words. It is a person who knows how to use their words to connect, to clarify, to inspire, and to lead. It is a person who is not afraid to be simple when simplicity is needed, and not afraid to be precise when precision is required. It is a person who communicates not just with their mind, but with their heart. And that is the journey that I am so excited to be on with all of you. This brings us to a fascinating and crucial stage in our journey. So far, we have focused intensely on the art of speaking. how to craft our message with clarity, how to deliver it with a natural rhythm, and how to infuse it with a confidence that comes from deep within. We've learned to be like skilled archers, carefully aiming and sending our words out into the world. But what happens next? What happens after our arrow has been fired? Communication, in its truest form, is not a monologue. It is a dance. It is a dialogue. And the true test of advanced fluency lies not just in how well you speak, but in how gracefully you converse. This is where we explore the other half of the equation, the art of listening, responding, and building bridges of understanding with others. It's about turning your speaking skills into genuine conversational mastery. Let me introduce you to a man named Matteo. Matteo, a marketing executive from Argentina, was a phenomenal speaker. When he presented, he was charismatic, clear, and passionate. He could hold a room captive with his ideas. He had mastered everything we've talked about so far. However, Matteo had a blind spot. In smaller meetings, in one-on-one conversations, he tended to dominate. He would get so excited about his own ideas that he wouldn't leave much space for anyone else to contribute. He wasn't being rude. He was simply overflowing with passion. He would talk at people, not with them. His colleagues would leave conversations with him feeling a bit exhausted, as if they had just listened to a lecture rather than participated in a discussion. One day, after a brainstorming session where Matteo had presented a brilliant but complete idea, leaving no room for input, his colleague Emily, who was known for being a fantastic collaborator, asked if they could have a quick coffee. She said to him, "Matteo, your ideas are always incredible." But sometimes, in a brainstorm, the goal isn't just to find one brilliant idea, but to build one together. It felt like you served us a fully cooked meal when we were all hoping to cook together in the kitchen. This simple metaphor struck Matteo deeply. He realized that for years he had been treating every conversation like a presentation stage. He had forgotten that the magic of collaboration, friendship, and true connection happens in the back and forth, in the give and take. He had forgotten how to listen. This led Matteo on a journey to master the art of active listening. And this is a skill I want to share with all of you. Active listening is not just being silent while the other person talks. That's just waiting for your turn to speak. Active listening is an engaged, dynamic process. It's about listening with your full attention, your ears, your eyes, and your heart. It's about listening not just for the words being said, but for the meaning and the feeling behind those words. Think of it like being a detective. When someone is speaking, you are listening for clues. What is their tone of voice telling you? Are they excited, worried, uncertain? What specific words are they choosing? Why did they choose the word challenging instead of difficult? Active listening means being curious. One of the most powerful techniques for active listening is to ask powerful, open-ended questions. Many of us fall into the trap of asking closed questions, which can be answered with a simple yes or no. These questions tend to shut conversations down. For example, did you have a good weekend? Yes. Do you like the new design? No. Have you finished the report? Yes. An advanced communicator learns to transform these into open-ended questions that invite stories, opinions, and deeper reflection. Let's try transforming those same questions. Instead of, did you have a good weekend? So Kasyan, you could ask, what was the most interesting thing you did this weekend? Instead of, do you like the new design? Comma, you could ask, what are your thoughts on the new design? Instead of, have you finished the report? Comma, you could ask, how is the report coming along? Do you feel the difference? These open-ended questions are an invitation. They say, I am genuinely interested in your experience and your perspective. Please tell me more. Here's a practice for you. The next time you are in a casual conversation, I want you to make a conscious effort to ask at least one open-ended question instead of a closed one. If a colleague mentions they went to see a film, resist the urge to ask, did you like it? Instead, try asking, oh, interesting. What did you think of the story? Or, what made you want to see that particular film? This small shift will radically change the quality of your conversations. Building on this, another principle Matteo learned from Emily was the yes and principle, which comes from the world of improvisational theater. In many conversations, especially when we disagree, our natural instinct is to respond with, yes, but. The word but essentially negates everything that came before it. It creates opposition. For example, colleague, I think we should invest more in social media marketing. You, yes, but we don't have the budget for that. The yes and principle encourages a more collaborative flow. You first acknowledge and validate the other person's point, yes, and then you add to it or build on it, and. Let's reframe that same conversation. Colleague, I think we should invest more in social media marketing. You, yes, that's a great point. Our online presence is really important, and we'll need to figure out how to fit it into our current budget. Maybe we can look at reallocating some funds. The feeling is completely different. The first response creates a roadblock. The second response opens a door to problem solving. It turns a potential argument into a collaborative brainstorm. Now, let's see how Matteo applied these skills, especially in a situation involving disagreement. A few weeks after his coffee with Emily, Matteo was in a meeting with a junior team member, David. David proposed a marketing strategy that Matteo, with his experience, instantly knew was flawed and would likely fail. His old self would have immediately said, "No, that's not going to work. The data doesn't support that approach at all." This would have been factually correct, but it would have crushed David's confidence. Instead, Matteo took a deep breath and remembered his new tools. He started with active listening and validation. He said, "Okay, David, thank you for sharing that. I can see the creative thinking behind your idea, especially the way you want to target a new audience. That's really interesting." He then asked an open-ended question to understand David's perspective better. "Can you walk me through your thought process on how you see that impacting our core customers?" After David explained, Matteo used the yes and approach to gently introduce his concerns. He said, "Yes, I agree that reaching a new audience is a fantastic goal, and my main concern is that this approach might alienate our existing loyal customers. I wonder, is there a way we could adapt your creative idea to engage the new audience without risking the base we already have?" This response was a masterclass in advanced communication. He didn't say, "You're wrong." He said, "I have a concern." He validated the good parts of the idea before questioning the weak parts. He turned his disagreement into a collaborative question. How can we solve this together? David didn't feel attacked. He felt respected and included in the problem-solving process. This is how you disagree constructively. This is how you lead with influence, not just authority. Here are a few phrases you can practice using when you need to express a different opinion politely. That's a valid point, and I see it from a slightly different angle. I understand where you're coming from. My only hesitation is, I really appreciate you bringing that up. It makes me wonder if we've also considered. I agree with the spirit of what you're saying. Perhaps we could achieve the same goal by. These phrases are the tools of a diplomatic, confident, and effective communicator. They allow you to be honest and assertive while still maintaining a positive and respectful relationship. By learning to listen actively, ask powerful questions, build on others' ideas, and disagree gracefully, Matteo transformed himself. He was no longer just a great speaker. He became a great conversationalist, a great colleague, and a great leader. He discovered that the ultimate sign of confidence is not in proving how much you know, but in creating a space where everyone feels comfortable enough to share how much they know. This is the final beautiful polish on your advanced English skills. It's the ability to step off the stage and join the dance floor. It's recognizing that every conversation is an opportunity, not just to broadcast your own ideas, but to co-create new ones with others. This is the rich, dynamic, and deeply human side of language, and it is a space where I invite all of you to confidently and joyfully step into. Let's now delve into a technique that separates a good speaker from a truly memorable one. We've learned how to structure a conversation, how to be clear, and how to connect emotionally. Now we're going to learn how to paint pictures with our words. We're going to explore the power of vivid language, specifically through metaphors and analogies. This is a skill that can take a complex, abstract idea and make it instantly clear, relatable, and unforgettable. Think about it. The human brain doesn't think in abstract data points. It thinks in images and stories. When you can connect your idea to an image that already exists in your listener's mind, you create a powerful shortcut to understanding. Let me tell you about a woman named Anya, the brilliant founder of a tech startup in Poland. Anya had developed a very complex piece of software that used artificial intelligence to analyze vast amounts of market data. When she pitched her idea to investors, her initial presentations were technically flawless. She would say things like, "Our proprietary algorithm utilizes a multi-layered neural network to perform predictive analysis on unstructured data sets, thereby optimizing strategic decision-making." The investors, most of whom were business experts but not software engineers, would nod politely, but she could see the confusion in their eyes. Her message wasn't landing. They weren't excited because they didn't truly understand what her product did. Her mentor, a seasoned entrepreneur, gave her a crucial piece of advice. He said, "Anya, stop explaining the engine. Sell them the car. Better yet, sell them the feeling of driving the car. Use an analogy they can't forget." So for her next pitch, Anya completely changed her opening. She walked in, smiled, and said, "Good morning. Imagine your business is a giant, ancient library. It's filled with millions of books, and somewhere inside is the one book that contains the secret to your future success. You know it's in there, but you could spend a lifetime searching for it. Now, imagine our software is a genius librarian, a librarian who has read every single book and can bring you the exact page you need in less than a second." You could feel the change in the room. Suddenly, the investors were leaning forward. They got it. The complex idea of predictive analysis on unstructured data sets became a simple, powerful image: a genius librarian. Anya secured her funding that day, not because she changed her software, but because she changed her words. She learned that a masterful analogy is the fastest bridge between a complex idea and a clear understanding. This is a skill you can cultivate. It's about being playful and creative with language. Let's practice. How could we explain other complex ideas using simple analogies? How about blockchain technology? Instead of talking about decentralized ledgers and cryptographic hashes, you could say it's like a digital public notebook. Everyone can see what's written in it, but the ink is permanent, so no one can ever go back and erase or change what's been written. Or the human immune system? Instead of talking about lymphocytes and antibodies, you could say, it's like your body's own personal army. It's on patrol 24/7, and the moment it spots an invader like a virus, it sounds the alarm and sends out soldiers to fight it off. Now it's your turn for a little creative challenge. Think of a complex idea from your own profession, your field of study, or a hobby you love. It could be anything: a legal principle, a scientific theory, a cooking technique, a business strategy. Now, pause for a moment and try to create a simple analogy or metaphor to explain it. Imagine you are explaining it to an intelligent 10-year-old. For instance, if you're an accountant, you might explain a budget by saying, a budget is like a diet plan for your money. It helps you make sure you're not spending too much on snacks and have enough for the healthy, important stuff. This kind of practice trains your brain to think creatively and to become a much more effective and memorable communicator. As we become more skilled in our use of language, we must also become more aware of the world in which we are using it. English is a global language, which means we are constantly interacting with people from different backgrounds and cultures. A truly advanced C2 level communicator understands that effective communication is not just about the words you say, but about your cultural intelligence. It's about understanding that communication styles can vary dramatically across the world and having the flexibility to adapt. Let me tell you the story of Chen, a talented project manager from Shanghai who was transferred to his company's head office in Chicago. Chen was polite, respectful, and incredibly hardworking. In China, he was used to a high-context communication culture. This means that communication is often indirect, and a great deal of meaning is found in nonverbal cues, shared understanding, and preserving group harmony. You don't always say exactly what you mean because being too direct can be seen as rude. In his first few team meetings in Chicago, Chen used this indirect style. If he disagreed with an idea, instead of saying, "I disagree," he might say, "That is an interesting perspective." We should also explore some other possibilities to ensure we have a comprehensive plan. He was trying to be polite and suggest an alternative without causing conflict. However, his American colleagues, who were used to a very low-context, direct style of communication, often misinterpreted him. They thought he was agreeing, or that he was being vague and unassertive. They would say, "Okay, great, so you're on board? Let's move on." Chen grew increasingly frustrated because his valuable insights were being overlooked. He finally spoke about it with a colleague he trusted, who explained the cultural difference. "Chen," she said, "here, it's okay to be direct. In fact, people appreciate it. It's seen as being honest and efficient. You don't have to be aggressive, but you do have to be clear about your position." It took practice, but Chen learned to adapt his style. He didn't abandon his politeness, but he added a layer of American-style directness. The next time he disagreed with an idea, he said, "I appreciate the work you've put into that idea, Sarah. I have a couple of concerns about the budget, though. I think we can make this stronger. Here's what I'm thinking." The change was remarkable. His team started to see him as a strong, decisive leader. He learned that cultural intelligence wasn't about abandoning his own style, but about adding new tools to his communication toolkit. Understanding these nuances is critical for any advanced speaker. For example, in many cultures, it's normal to have a period of small talk about family or the weather before getting down to business. In other cultures, this can be seen as a waste of time. The use of humor can also vary wildly. Sarcasm, which is very common in British English, can be deeply confusing or even offensive in other contexts. A truly advanced speaker is also an observer. When you communicate with someone from a different background, pay attention. How direct are they? How much small talk do they use? Do they interrupt, or do they wait for long pauses? By observing and adapting, you show respect and dramatically increase your effectiveness. Here is a reflective prompt for you. Think about a time you communicated with someone from a culture different from your own. It could be a colleague, a client, a friend, or even someone you met while traveling. Did you notice any differences in how they communicated? Perhaps they were more direct or more indirect than you were used to. What did you learn from that interaction? How can you use that awareness to be an even more effective global communicator in the future? And so we bring our journey full circle. We've gathered all of these incredible tools: the clarity of simple language, the power of a confident mindset, the music of natural rhythm, the connection of storytelling, the empathy of emotional intelligence, the precision of a well-chosen word, the grace of spontaneity, the creativity of a vivid metaphor, and the wisdom of cultural awareness. We have filled our toolkit to the brim, but as we stand here now with all of these techniques at our disposal, I want to remind you of one final fundamental truth. The most important tool you will ever have is the one you started with, your own unique voice and the belief in its value. The goal of all this practice is not to turn you into someone else. It's not to make you sound like a perfect British newsreader or a charismatic American movie star. The goal is to remove the barriers of fear, hesitation, and misunderstanding so that the most confident, clear, and authentic version of you can shine through. Think back on the characters we've met. Liam, the analyst, found his confidence not in complex jargon, but in clear, simple explanations. Annika, the manager, found her strength not in authority, but in empathy. Matteo, the marketing executive, discovered that true influence comes from listening more than from speaking. And Anya, the founder, realized her brilliant idea was only as good as the simple story she could tell about it. Each of them embarked on a journey not to acquire a new personality, but to unlock the one that was already there. This is my deepest wish for you, that you take these tools and use them not as a rigid set of rules, but as a way to liberate your own voice, to speak your truth, to share your ideas, to tell your stories, and to connect with the people around you in a way that is both powerful and genuinely you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today here at English in Advance. If you found this masterclass helpful and you are committed to continuing this journey of growth every single day, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you never miss a new lesson. It is my absolute pleasure to share these ideas with you, and I cannot wait to see you again in our next session. Until then, keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep believing in the incredible value of your own voice, because you truly can and will become the natural, confident, and advanced English speaker you were always meant to be.